Good evening. Happy Wednesday. Um, so sorry I missed last week. As you can hear, we are getting over a ton of sickness in the house. And I'm going to do my best to talk to where y'all can hear me. Um, I just said that, and there it is. So bear with me a little bit on the voice, but the information is really, really important. So it's really topical too. Well, I guess I should give you the topic first if you haven't read it. So we are going over building because so often I hear, well, maybe we'll just build. And this is especially topical right now because one, I have two different pieces of land for sale that are very unique, but then also I'm seeing this as a topic in fellow realtor groups often as well. Um, and it can be sometimes a little bit insensitive just because you don't know what you don't know, right? But when y'all come to us and you're like, hey, I'm just going to build, I got $100,000, you become a meme. And it's not that you're doing anything wrong, it's just that you don't understand what goes into it. So we're going to go through and talk about what goes into that so you guys can be better educated and you can stop driving your realtors nuts because y'all, like, not all of them are good at explaining this, but we know what goes into it. We want you to know what goes into it. So yeah, don't shoot the messenger, but I hope this is informative. Talking about, first of all, I'm just going to go with the things that I've listed and why they're unique. I have a 14-acre plot of land with utilities already run and partially cleared. And my other one is a deeded RV lot, which is not something we see a whole lot in the Chattanooga area specifically, but where this is on Lake Weiss in Alabama, super normal. Love it. It's like a lake house, but you just stick your RV on it, right? And that one has beach and it's actually waterfront, and that adds value too. So when you're looking at land, you got to consider a couple things as far as just the piece of land and if it's worth the price. First of all, how much space is it? The bigger the plot, more likely it's going to be a higher price per acre. Now this is weird because if you're comparing it to a home, it's the exact opposite. In a house, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath to some extent is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. If you have it in 1,200 square feet or 1,800 square feet, your price per square foot is not going to be the same. You're not getting that much more value out of that square footage when you have the same bedrooms and bathrooms and practical usage, right? Now, in land, it goes the opposite way to some extent. Under an acre is going to be more than once you start adding acreage. But if you see a property that's like 100 acres and it is crazy expensive, that is because of supply and demand, right? How often are you going to find a plot that is that big, that has so many different things that you can do with it? It's rare. It's a commodity. So it's going to cost more. So when you're dealing with land, it's a whole different thing. A lot of agents don't even really know the intricacies of it. But when you as a consumer are looking at it, just know that you're going to have to factor in the size of it because it's not a one size fits all per acre. As much as we wish it fit in that box, it just doesn't. So if you see a price that looks weird, talk to your agent, ask their opinion, see if they can help you figure out why it's priced that way, or if maybe they think the listing agent just got it wrong, because that does happen. The second thing to consider is topography, right? So if you are, and actually I came across one of these, there's a piece of property on the side of a mountain, right in a curve, surrounded by other homes. So there's really not a ton of space, very, very limited area you can build on. And when you are building, it's going to go straight up and it's going to be on a cliff. And doing something like that is very expensive and it can be kind of dangerous. So that lot, unless the view is fabulous going to be way cheaper than something that is flat and very buildable, right? Then you have to consider how much work has already been done, because clearing so expensive. Like, y'all, it can cost $5,000 to take down one really big tree, right? So when you're clearing acreage, I need you to not just be adding thousands, but be adding tens of thousands of dollars to the price. Okay. That is if you want it all cleared. But clearing land is very expensive. The next thing is, are there already utilities there? Utilities are very expensive. And so when you say, oh, maybe I'll buy a piece of land and stick a house on it. The reason agents don't always take you seriously is because they want to know that you've gone through this. Now, if you get someone who is seasoned in land and in building, then they're not going to write you off immediately. They're going to walk you through it. And in my buyer's consultation, if this is brought up, then I have some questions. Okay, what is your overall budget? If we found the perfect currently built house for you, what does that budget look like? Now, when it's built to exactly your specifications, what does that budget look like? Because it's different. You're always, always, always going to pay more when you build. And I'll get into why. From there, if we're looking at building, okay, what's your budget for the land? What's your budget for the house? What's your budget for running utilities? Do you have the cash to run utilities? Because a lot of times you can't finance that in. Sometimes you can't. It depends on the type of loan that you're getting. So all of that I need to know up front to figure out what we're looking for, how we're looking for it, and who that lender partner needs to be if you don't already have one. So consider that. And when we're asking these questions, it is not to pry. It is really to give you the best service. So along with that, when you go to builder websites and it shows you the house and it shows you the price, you're like, awesome, it's a 4-bedroom house for $125,000. Guess what? That literally is for the house. Just the house, not on the land, right? So then you're going to factor in your land, your prep of the build site, your utilities, and then if there's any weird foundational things. So normally that's going to factor in your typical slab or crawl space. But if you want a basement, or if it's on a hill and they're going to need to do like a walkout or something to build that up to level, that's going to add more money too. So if you see a piece of land for $30,000 and a house for $125,000, please don't think you're buying this for $155,000. It's not happening, because that just doesn't include all of the expenses. So then when we're going into utilities, this is the reason I asked this. And this is why when you see a property that has utilities, it's going to cost a lot more. To run just electric, you're looking at an average of anything from $10 to $25 per linear foot. This is also not just this specifically, but all of the utilities. It's also why we're seeing builders build tons of houses smushed together on tiny little lots, because they have to pay all of these utility companies per linear foot, and that adds up. So it's really not cost effective for them to put a house on an acre, on 5 acres, on 10 acres, because they have to pay per foot. They want to get as much profit out of each foot as they can, or it just doesn't make sense for them to build it unless it's a custom home where a lot of that expense is going to that buyer, right? So much as I hate the smushed together houses, please don't hate on builders. They're doing the best they can with the prices out there. Because your sewer, your water, and if you do septic instead of sewer, same thing, your electric all cost money. So we're just going to focus on electric right now, because it, I think, has the most facets to it. So again, your electric, you're looking at an average of $10 to $25 per linear foot. Now, that means for, let's just say 300 square feet, or not square, 300 linear feet, you're looking at $1,500 to about $8,000. for 300 feet, right? So that has a couple of that's a wide range, right? There's a couple of reasons for that. First of all is, are you above ground or underground? For underground utilities on electricity, double the cost. Okay, so if you're going to spend about 500 doing overhead, if you decide you want underground because it looks better and honestly less exposure to the elements, go ahead and double that. It's not a full double. You're probably going to be closer to 8 or 9 rather than 10, but just double it for budgeting. So 300 feet, you're looking at, say, $8,000 on the high end. Okay. But now consider this. That's just running the line. You got to include the site prep. So do they have to clear anything to get to where they're putting the line? You're paying for them to put a power pole in and a transformer. So a little bit tangent here. But your power to your home has to go through a transformer because the power on the power lines and the power to your home are different ampage. So they need to take what's on the power line, put it through a transformer to get it to lower ampage to go to your home. So you're also paying for your transformer when you're getting electricity. You might have not known that. That's a couple extra thousand. That pole add 1,000 or 2. And then say you have this lovely plot and you are building, I don't know, say you have 10 acres and you're building right in the middle of it because you love privacy and you want privacy, right? So not only are you paying to cut your driveway in halfway into your land, but then you're paying to run that line halfway into your land. Remember, 25, if you're going underground, 25 a linear foot. And this was last year's numbers, so they could be more. Now also consider the longer you run that line, the thicker that line needs to be. So that increases your price. And it just keeps adding up and adding up and adding up and adding up. And your water is similar and your sewer is similar. The longer they have to run it, they're going to need to have some bigger pipes. Septic is also very expensive. And depending on the topography, maybe you need to get a pump to pump it up. And this happens both septic and sewer. If your home is not high enough above where your septic or sewer is going to be, guess what? You got to get a pump to pump it up so that it doesn't just stop in between and get all gross and cause you tons of disgusting, expensive problems. Water, same thing. And then again, when you're going into the topography, it's not just hills and valleys, but what is your soil composition? Is it really sandy? Is it a ton of clay? Do you have a bunch of rock? All of that is going to affect how hard it is to get utilities in, and that can increase your price. So never, ever, ever buy land and plan to build on it without doing a feasibility study, which is where you're going to go get all this information and figure out your quotes. And if you can even put utilities there, and if so, how much it's going to cost you, and if it still makes sense to buy that land. But then also when you're looking at things that are available and you're like, whoa, that's expensive, dig a little deeper. Again, I have a lot that is 14 acres. They have underground power run pretty far into the land on 2 different sites. That's expensive. They have a water line run to the site. That's expensive. They have a septic for 3 to 5 bedrooms. That's expensive. They have a driveway. That's expensive. And this other one, it's on the water. They put in money to put an actual sandy beach in. It's the only lot that has a sandy beach. That's expensive. They have power and water. That's expensive. And then they also put in a black tank that conveys with the property and is bigger than average. So you don't have to go pump your RV somewhere else all the time. That's expensive. And I'm not just saying these like oh, I have these pieces of land that need to go. No, one of them was just listed a couple days ago and it's showing like crazy. But I'm using these as examples because if you get a buyer or an agent who is not familiar with land and is comparing something with all these utilities to raw land, it's going to be completely different. The days of this are gone and I wish they were back. But at one point, there were very small lots in Dayton, Tennessee, available for $5,000 a piece of land. The only reason I did not buy one is because we weren't first time home buyers yet. And first time home buyer incentives go on whether or not you've been a property owner. So that would have really cost us more money in the long run. But I would have bought it and sat on it, even with it having nothing. So kind of like look at what is there, what the value is, what your needs are, and really just look at all aspects of it because land, it's unfortunate we make a lot less on land and it seems like, oh, it's a piece of dirt. How complicated can it be? Land is so complex. And that's what I love about it. There's so much going on and so many things you can do with it. That doesn't even get into zoning. I'm getting way too excited here. That doesn't even get into zoning. If you have something, just again, going back, this 14 acres zoned R3, everything around it is single family. So they were planning on doing a single family, and that's most likely fine because everything around it's single family. That's fine. But R3, you could put an apartment there and it'd be fine because that's what it's zoned for. So look at your zoning. If it's not zoned for something you want, look what's around it, see your probability of getting a variance. Guess what? You can put that contingency in your contract too. So if you guys are looking at land, please, please, please talk to me about it. Make sure you get a builder to go out there and quote what it's going to cost to get your site to what they need if they do that. Or if they require you to have it already done, get your quotes. Make sure you know your builder does that area. Same thing if you're like, hey, I'm just going to stick a mobile home on it. Are there restrictions that say you can't? And then if there aren't, have you talked to the mobile home company? Have you talked to the lender? All of that is so different depending on every little scenario. You have land that says what kind of animals you can have on it. All of these things are restricted. And we live in Catoosa County. We're on less than an acre. So in Catoosa County, if you're not in the city and under an acre, you can have up to 3 hens, but no rooster. So I'm not going to be one of these people with 15 chickens in my backyard because I can't. And I live on a main road and someone would report me. I cannot go get a cow. I don't think we can have a goat. I would need to double check. But if I ask you weird questions like, what are your plans for this? What are you looking at building? What animals do you want to have? What's the lifestyle you see happening here? Is it investment? All of these questions are because land is so complex and land is so expensive to develop. And I really, really, really just want to make sure that you guys are making an informed decision and you're not just saying, oh, houses are too expensive, I'm just going to build something, because you're seeing the basic numbers and not connecting all of the pieces that are in between those. So if you all have questions, I'm always happy to answer them. I hope that this has been so informative. I hope that you guys have an amazing week, and I will see you all